David, maybe just, I think you touched upon a lot of great points. And I think one piece that, does it's kind of stands out is regarding, what problem are we solving, right? Because we have all of this toolkit and it's going to continue to grow. So as you're looking to, kind of take your product to the clinic or to the market, I think you got to really think through what problem are we solving? How does it impact the patient? Is it really helping you, or is it something? Is it like a theoretical sort of impact where yes, it would be nice to have versus the must-haves? And even as you said, like even simple things like closing the process, right? I think that can have enormous impact on how you operate, right? Instead of doing operations in the BSC, you could be processing in a grade C or sort of clean room, and not having to kind of mitigating contamination risk, right? So I think those are some of the things that you could even start small, like closing the process, kind of bundling up unit operations on a single machine, and you immediately see some of those wins where you were able to streamline the process, and or even kind of in the traditional we call it process intensification. But I think those quick wins, and then as you look a little bit of the longer term automation aspects that getting to high throughput manufacturing, I mean those could be also in your roadmap. So as long as you have a problem to solve, you have these toolkits, and you have a good roadmap, I think that should really get you to your end goals. So again, I just want to make sure that there is going to be a lot of solutions out there, but you got to be really cognizant about what works for you and your patient population.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. That makes a great deal of sense. Before I continue on, I just want to remind our audience to certainly to submit your questions for Rohit and David. We'd love to talk to you about exactly what you and your teams are going through and help answer your questions and give you the good insight that perhaps can help you move your teams forward. But back to our topic at hand and question set. David, you did mention something, the when to put money toward this, when to start automation, when to invest. And I think that probably looks different for every company, but, kind of a 30,000 foot view, when is when? Is it too early? Is there ever time too early to start? What makes sense to you?
I think it's always day 57. No, obviously, kidding in terms of specific day, but no, I think as you hit the nail on the head, it's very process and indication specific. I think it's also a little bit of the organization you work for and kind of the how deep your pockets are. I think in an ideal world we'd like to start looking at automation early. But if I sink 20% of my budget into automation in phase one, I might not get to the point where I get to phase three. Meaning there's always trade-offs in terms of what do you invest in now. I did like I think Rohit's point of saying what are kind of the quick wins you can look at that make sense. And I also think that trying to fully automate your entire process at one time is probably unrealistic. It's more taking a modular approach to the different steps and seeing where you can close, where you can automate different pieces at the time, with the view of saying eventually you'll tie it all together to have a potentially fully closed automated process. But I think it's most smaller biotechs. If you're doing a novel therapy, you're entering into the clinic, and the problem with working on breaking edge technology is it doesn't always work. So it becomes a little bit of a you want to have some proof of concept that your intended therapy is having the intended effect in your patients before you spend a whole bunch of upfront money in building out your facilities and your automation as well too. So I think I think you should start planning early, probably in preclinical stage, to what your end process will look like. But when you invest in those kind of automated and very pricey robotics and that type of stuff, which are cool and down the road will be very useful to you. But I think it's a case-by-case decision on when is the right time to do it. Earlier is better from regulatory and consistency standpoint, but from realities of budgets and whatnot, it's usually mid to late pivotal and potentially even into commercial when you have the kind of the funding to fully implement that, and also the need, meaning it's the real savings or the real need for automation is when you're looking to go from a clinical stage where you're doing maybe tens to hundreds of batches a year to a commercial stage where you're potentially doing thousands. That's where it really becomes critical that you have automation and whatnot. As Rohit said, most of our operators are highly trained, very scientists that are capable of doing stuff. How we take our very capable teams and multiply them by 10 in a short period of time, in ensuring training consistency and whatnot, is a large problem to tackle. And that's where kind of automation and potentially robotics allows you to streamline and automate and increase your reproducibility.
Good, thank you. Rohit, I have a question for you I want to talk a little bit more about robotics specifically. How is robotics currently being used in cell therapy manufacturing, and what are the specific processes where robotics has made the most significant impact to date?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. And just in terms of robotics, right? So I think there are sort of two major groups of technologies that are emerging, right? So one is completely proprietary, end-to-end automation. So I think companies like Solaris, I think they're kind of one of the leaders in this space, where you're looking at potentially walk away, right? I mean, you start your process, you're doing multiple batches, more than a dozen batches in the shuttle at the same time. And there's minimal sort of intervention required, right? You load up all your reagents, connect everything, and everything is proprietary, right? So I think these end-to-end automation technologies, like I think other companies will also come with something similar. So I think that's more I would say a closed loop, integrated, adaptable, but proprietary end-to-end operation. And I think the second piece where you can deploy automation right on your existing standard equipment, could be your Miltini, like your Prodigy, or it could be your G-Rex system. It could be a combination of incubators, all of those things where these robotic arms. So essentially, I think it's, instead of having an operator do it, you have a robotic arm that's moving in a controlled environment, sort of like a GMP in a box kind of setting, where you have these modules and you can pre-select these modules. I think company here in the Bay Area, Multiply Labs, I think they are kind of doing a lot in this space, and there are a lot of other startups who are also looking to disrupt this space. So I think that's the second part, where you're deploying automation using standard GMP equipment, right? So that might be also attractive for companies where they already have a platform with the current existing equipment, and they want to really apply the automation layer on top to increase throughput, right? So I think those are the two main aspects that are evolving. And I think I think the way I look at it is, right now, automation is what I see is having a bigger impact, where you are able to consolidate a lot of these unit operations, right? Isolation, activation, transduction, expansion, formulation on one unit, one machine. So for example, like a Miltini Prodigy or a Lonza Cocoon, right? And there are other providers as well from Cytiva, so who are actually allowing the benefit of, it's like, yes, you have you load your apheresis and you get a formulated product, but still there are a lot of training required, a lot of hand holding required. So it's not truly like a walk away sort of automation in that sense. So I would say robotics is emerging. I think it will eventually disrupt, right, the cell therapy manufacturing. And we are seeing some tip of the iceberg right now with some of these two different approaches that I mentioned, completely proprietary, end-to-end proprietary, and the other one where the automated solutions kind of tag along with the existing equipment that's already being used. And then I think the main areas that I see where robotics can play a role is wherever right now you're using operators, right? So I think operators are transferring cells from one equipment to the second equipment, right? They are, they are harvesting material, let's say, of your equipment of choice, and then doing the formulation in the BSC, right? So I think and there are a lot of mixing steps. There are sampling steps, which could also be automated, where, there's a lot of variability that's introduced as the way how you mix with these different, pipettes. And it's if you want to mix 20 times before you actually take a sample because you have a viscous formulation. So all of those things, smaller things, it's all in the details where they actually, if you are able to focusing on your particular pain point and apply automation, and then also look at robotics down the road, I think that will be an enormous sort of benefit. So, liquid handling, cell suspension and transfer, and then also data collection, right? So I think one of the challenges that I've seen is you have data that's residing sometimes on your machine, and you are transfer it to your network, and then you have to collect the data. And that's also like a best case scenario. Most of the times things are on your printed batch record, and then you're trying to get from there to your cloud database or wherever you need to put that data in. So like a ton of effort goes into extracting the data, verifying it, curating it, and making it available for investigations, or kind of making predictive for your analytics. So I think there is so all of those things I would say be impacted. I think robotics impact is going to come a little bit a little bit further down the road. I think automation is impacting as we speak, where a lot of these manual operations are either go to the machines or they are being or I think, like, if you even look at it like a true process design perspective, if you're able to eliminate certain processing steps, that's even a game changer. I would say, simplify your process, optimize, and then automate. So that would be my sort of 3-point simpler framework for solving your automation and robotics challenges.
Thank you. That was extremely helpful. I appreciate the detail. David, I want to ask you a question regarding, this is more of a scalability question. What would you say are the key considerations for scaling up from, laboratory scale to clinical and commercial scale production of cell therapies?
So I think that's an excellent question, and it's very much tied to the biology of whatever cell therapy you're working on. If you're autologous versus allogeneic, with autologous, you're looking to scale out, meaning you're still doing one batch per patient. So you have to increase your capacity, increase your manufacturing floor size, and increase your robustness. With allogeneic, where you're looking to kind of truly scale up, cells, the kind of thought is, okay, if I put, 10 cells and 10 mLs, if I put 100 cells and 100 mLs, they'll behave the same way. Unfortunately, biology generally doesn't work that way. So it really is, again, you kind of have to start with the end game in mind when you're transitioning from your preclinical, whether you're doing animal or in vitro models, to figuring out okay, what's this going to look like when I'm trying to produce for one patient versus what's this going to look like when I'm trying to produce for multiple patients. And I think, that's also when you start talking about automation, robotics, and that type of stuff, all of that is ultimately going to be necessary, I think, to have, to control costs and control reproducibility and whatnot. But making that transition from, a human operator with a pipette to a robot doing sample handling takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of precision to make sure it's working right. And the other, the question of when is the right time to introduce kind of pieces of automation and whatnot, it's very much tied to how locked your process is at any given time. Meaning, if you're planning to make additional process updates, it's hard to make updates and then change your automation schedule. But I think, to your original question of, what are the pain points from scaling up? It's, you can't, it's not usually with cells linear. You can't go from one scale to the next without having unanticipated problems as you go along. So you kind of, as you're making changes and whatnot, you really have to be cognizant of what your end state is going to be, so that you're making, the most efficient changes and controlling the right aspects as you go along for whatever your process specifics are.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
And yeah, just wanted to quickly add there. So I think just in terms of the scale, as we're talking about scaling up, from labs to clinical to commercial, I think, as David said, starting early is critical. But I think also involving a lot of your, having starting with a scalable sort of platform from the get-go will, I think it does help as you're doing tech transfers and as you're looking to increase your throughput, all of that. But, getting your, manufacturing, MSAT, PD, AD, QC teams involved early on when we are going into phase one, right? I think having that manufacturability assessment, having that done upfront, I think it will save you a ton of effort and time down the road. I think so it's a little bit of, I would say, it's still a game about having the right people and the collaboration to solve your challenges upfront, or at least you do your manufacturability assessment upfront with the platform that you have chosen, and be cognizant about what are the pros and the cons, and have that communication going on early on. Versus most of the time you have a process that's coming from a PD lab, and then you find out, oh yeah, this doesn't actually work in manufacturing, and then it kind of, the feedback, it's a little bit too late at that point to introduce a lot of these changes. So I would say, start early, get your teams involved, talking, and I think you'll probably save yourself a lot of time and complex, like compatibility studies and all down the road.